So your main problem with the Grammys was Jack Harlow's album being on Best Rap Album of the Year when you felt someone like JID or Vince Staples should have been on
No,
that
no,
list.
no. So it wasn't just about Jack Harlow. My problem with the Grammys, and it's more or less how they are like Jack Harlow's just an example of my issues with them because they nominated him. They nominated DJ Khaled. DJ Khaled did not deserve to be Album of the Year. And they nominated a bunch of other ones. A couple years ago, they nominated "Yummy," which was one of the worst songs of the year. They nominated for Album of the Year, first track of the year. And my problem with the Grammys every year is that they don't select what's the best album of the year. Like in this case, would have been yes, Mr. Morale would have been there. Yes, I think Pusha T's album was sort of still would have been there. Future's album, people really like that album. But I think they would have had JID's Forever Story. I think they would have had Denzel Curry's album. I think there's a couple other rappers that definitely deserved a shout out there, but I think those five would have made a better choice than DJ Khaled, who name recognition, he gets it. Jack Harlow, who's the hottest rapper of what was 2022. It's like I don't think they picked a lot of these albums, and this isn't just about the rap genre. This is about pretty much every single nominee. It's just they pick these hot names. Like they nominated
Yeah.
Coldplay's album, and even Coldplay fans hated it. I don't like Coldplay, so I'm not going to speak about the album itself, but it's like every year it's like they nominate legacy picks. That's why Taylor Swift, Beyonce, all these other people, it's so many nominations. This isn't about their artistry. This is not saying whether or not they deserved it or not, because I'm not going to here to talk about that, but it's like they don't pick what I feel to be the best albums and what I feel like the consensus, what people would consider to be the best albums, like
Yeah.
critically acclaimed albums. They don't nominate critically acclaimed albums.
Yeah, they don't nominate critically acclaimed albums, and I feel like if you just compare like what the Oscars would look like if they have the same process of the Grammys, we would have Marvel movies nominated for Best Picture.
Star
We
Wars.
would have Dwayne the Rock Johnson being nominated for Best Actor just because he's in every movie. Then people pump out a bunch of content. It'd just be like you nominated like The Rock, John Cena, and Dave Batista were the actors of the year just based on name recognition. Not that there's not some name recognition to it, but like a Leonardo DiCaprio, a Jake Gyllenhaal, or a Michael Fassbender, Brad Pitt, all of those people probably earned being in the best actor role, not because of range, but also because of talent. And then
Absolutely.
the Oscars will also pick like some art house movie that no one's ever watched. It's rarely a movie like Top Gun that everyone went out to see.
Yeah.
It's rarely a Marvel movie, which kind of transcended cinema and was like a massive event that everyone experienced and went through emotionally at the same time. It's like they don't actually nominate the most popular or the movies that audience liked. The Grammys is like the complete opposite, where it's just like all the pop artists get nominated. We have like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ozzy Osbourne, the Black Keys for Best Rock Album.
Yeah.
It's like just old bands like Ozzy Osbourne won Best Rock Album. Like most people didn't even know that he was still alive, let alone still
That's
making
cold.
music.
That's cold. I do love my Ozzy Osbourne. I think he deserves to have Oscars. I mean Grammys. I'm not sure how many Grammys he had won prior to this year, but I think if he deserved to get an Oscar, I'm sorry, I keep calling it an Oscar. If he
Grammy.
deserved to get a Grammy, it was in the 80s and 70s and 80s, which I don't believe he did. I don't know, fact check me on that, I guess. But yeah, it's exactly like that because with like different categories, it's like you have the rap albums. It's like if Eminem releases an album, it's going to be nominated for a Grammy. If it's Jay-Z, if it's Kanye, if it's Kendrick, if it's most of the time I feel like J. Cole will get nominated. Pusha T for some reason always gets nominated for his albums. And these guys are all great rappers, so I think they deserve it. But I also feel like it doesn't really matter what they nominate. Plus, the Grammys, which is definitely something we can dive into, is how many times they have proven how illegitimate they are.
Yeah.
Like, for example, 2014. This is the most infamous moment that I will never forgive them for. They had Yeezus. Nothing was the same. What people consider to be one of Drake's best projects. They had Good Kid, Mad City, which is considered one of the best rap albums of the decade. They had Jay-Z's Magna Carta, and they had Macklemore's The Heist.
Didn't they have Forest Hills?
That was a different year, but
Okay.
that's another one. But they had all of those albums, and they lost to Macklemore. And you're talking about all the albums prior to that one that aged better than that. The Heist, I think it's like you listen to it for nostalgia, but nobody really like. I don't think anybody has talked about Macklemore since 2015.
No.
All these other rap albums have stood as some of the best projects from some of the best rappers of our time.
Yeah.
Like Yeezus, that's my favorite Kanye album. Nothing Was the Same. If I had to pick a Drake album, it's right up there. Good Kid, Mad City is arguably Kendrick's best album. You can argue To Pimp a Butterfly, but I think like all of these guys, these are some of their best projects, and they lost to Macklemore. They lost to a guy who made a song about thrift shopping. That's who they nominate. And then, God, there's so many other examples. There's so
Yeah.
many more. I can
Like
go on.
Imagine Dragons being nominated for best rock album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And then they both these award shows, I mean, I feel like the Grammys discriminates the most against people. Like just openly. Like you were telling
Yeah.
me the story about what they did with the weekend.
Yeah. So the weekend, the year that he did the Super Bowl, which was two Super Bowls ago, if I'm not mistaken, um, he had an opportunity to do a live performance at the Grammys and do the Super Bowl all in the same week. He would have done it, would have been like the first person to do that. And the Grammys gave him an ultimatum. He's like, you're either going to do the Grammys or the Super Bowl, which is stupid because the Super Bowl didn't do that. They didn't care. They're like, oh, well, he's one of the biggest artists. He just released one of the biggest albums of the year in After Hours. So obviously, we're going to have him on there. And obviously, because it makes way more sense, he's like, let's see, declining viewership in the Grammys or the number one event in the world every year, the Super Bowl, 100 million people, let me guess, pick the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then coincidentally enough, when it came time to announce their nominations, despite the fact that After Hours went double platinum and was one of the biggest songs of the year, Blinding Lights, the most streamed song ever. You have Save Your Tears, Summer Anthem. You have all these other songs off of that album. And he didn't get a single nomination. That was petty as shit.
Yeah.
And that same year, you want to know what was one of the songs of the year? Yummy by Justin Bieber. Yummy. Have you heard that song? That song is foul. That song is terrible. And that song, that's what you consider to be one of the best tracks that show musical expression? Are you kidding me? That song is horrible. And that was nominated the same year? No. That was the last straw for me. And now it's to the point where major artists don't even submit their stuff to the Grammys. So like, you guys are pathetic.